heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same.
Thank you, Vandello, and welcome once again to Graphically Novel. My name is Josh Wasta, a.k.a. Fallout Fieri, and with me, as always, is the Cancerverse.
Oh.
Oh,
That's
you always carry it with you?
Yeah, that's right. It's fair.
Well, thank you for that beautiful introduction, I guess. and with us again, the lovely and talented, the Baronessa, our Captain Marvel, as it were, is Jennifer.
Thank you. Wow, Captain Marvel. That's sweet. I'll take it.
Mm-hmm.
I'll totally take it. So much better than Cancerverse.
Right? Right? See, because I'm a good friend.
Light years. See what I did?
Light years.
Space Marvel.
Space Marvel. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest this season, and I am very happy to welcome Sarah Michels to our show. Thank you for coming. It's lovely to see you, and thank you for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's very exciting.
Yes, absolutely. So, before we jump in, this is your first time here, so we've got some introductory questions for you.
Mm-hmm.
But this season, we are doing special themed drinks. And now Jen is saying that it's my themed drink and not hers, though she chose it.
Yeah, but I had to do the past two.
That's true. Okay. And so for Guardians of the Galaxy, which is this episode, we searched and found actually something that we'll put up on our Facebook page that has a Guardians of the Galaxy drink for each member of the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh my goodness.
The
movie.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
So out of those, we chose Groot beer.
Okay.
Groot beer is blackstrap rum and root beer. And after our Tecate experience earlier today, when we recorded the Hellboy episode, we're going a little
Tastier.
A little darker.
a little darker, a little tastier,
Just coming
a
right
little
out.
higher proof, with it being rum instead of Tecate.
I don't know what you're talking about, but as soon as I cracked open that flask that you brought over, I was like, oh yeah, that appears. Like I cracked open the 2 liter first of A&W and went, nostalgia, just the smell.
Right.
And then I opened up the flask and I went, oh, there's the pain.
That's not pain.
It's not pain.
It's warm,
Blackstrap
warm
is-
embracing pain.
Yes, it's blackstrap is wonder. So cheers to a great episode.
Cheers indeed.
Cheers, indeed.
Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Does this make?
Hang on. I've heard. I saw someone do this. So in the pandemic, instead of actually touching your glasses, you do this. You go, or you can.
You hold your glass up
or
and
you can ping it. Yeah, but
Can't
it's
snap
not
with
going to
your
make any
left hand.
sound.
Oh,
Right.
snap your
Yeah,
fingers.
what was
Sorry.
that?
It's
Hold your glass up, snap your other the fingers on your other
It
hand.
works with a wine glass. Does not work with these glasses
No.
because they're very thick and heavy.
well, yeah, the flicking would not.
Yes.
That's just gonna make me.
I mean,
smell
you
like
could
rain.
do it, but
Thick
it
and
really
high
doesn't give the whole
and heavy.
Thick and heavy? Nice.
thick and heavy.
Yeah, in high school.
Yeah.
Hey, that's 2
Let's say-
episodes in a row. We've got a nickname in high school joke.
Yeah, I was just about to say hard flick was my nickname in high school.
Go hard flick or go home.
That's
I mean,
right.
shit.
Here comes a good old hard flick.
I think I learned that maneuver in wrestling.
I learned that
It wasn't
maneuver.
legal.
I learned that maneuver in my
wasn't
bedroom
legal.
when I was 12.
Oh, I didn't think your dad was like that.
Oh,
That's
yikes.
what you get for the Cancerverse thing.
that's true.
Yeah, no,
That's true.
it's-
I
Sorry,
did.
John. John, I'm sorry. I didn't mean that. You know, I didn't mean that. I'm just giving your son shit.
My dad doesn't know how to listen to podcasts.
Well, it's okay. if he ever does, if ever
you
he's
go.
lying on his deathbed and says, "I want to hear what my son's been doing for the last couple of years," like I want him to know that I was sorry for that.
Okay. Well, on the my dad dying note,
And assuming that he'd just disappoint him with this podcast. When
Right.
he's on his deathbed.
I mean,
I had to double down.
What have you been up to, son? Well, let me play this podcast about comic book movies and comic book, neither of which you give a fuck about.
I'm what they call an influencer, Dad.
Yeah, but at that
And then
point
he
in time,
just
if your
reads
dad's
his
listening to it, it's probably because he just wants to get it over with.
Well, or he's just looking for something to help him on his way.
Right? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, grease the skids to heaven. Oh my God. Okay, so
Yeah.
Sarah,
Hello.
your first time on our show.
Totally my first time.
So, what is your history with comic books? And what are a couple that are your current favorites? Like, if you were to read a comic book, what would it be?
I suppose I have to confess to not having a very much of a history with comic books. And it was really made clear to me why while I was reading this one.
Understandable.
Okay, that sounded way worse than I intended it. There is a reason here. I'm a very hyperverbal person. I am a speech therapist by day, for those that wouldn't know. And so I tell everyone I'm words, not pictures. And so, like, I get lost in towns I've lived in for decades, and like right now trying to describe floor plans between me and my husband, like that is a comedy of errors. Like I don't do visual skills, and have recently read some of those like articles that came out about this guy who's like, I didn't realize I was abnormal by not being able to visually imagine things in my brain.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
So I'm not that bad, but I've got, there's some overlap. Like I don't ever develop a mental map in my head of a place. I remember directions verbally.
And you married a man who is an artist in just about every possible.
Like and exclusively visual, like intensely visual, which is my only saving grace. Like we would be buying so many houses if I had a nickel for every time I was just like, oh, I think I know where I am. I go left here, right? And he goes, nope, go right. And it only took a couple of months of marriage before I was like, all right, I'm turning right. Like I just don't fight it. So I told you that to say I'm really, really hyperverbal and words, not pictures. So I was a big reader, learned to read early, loved to write. I stopped reading for pleasure in grad school because I couldn't.
You didn't have time.
I was at my clinical, at my placement, essentially 40 hours a week. And then I came home and had 4 or 5 hours of homework a night, So when I got out into the working world, like only working 40 hours a week seems so luxurious. And I just really struggled to get back into reading for pleasure. Excuse me, burping from the Tecate. That's nice. Real early in the show. And so I think a lot of people find graphic novels more accessible because they break up the text with pictures. And for me, that is worse. That is harder.
Right.
And this comic book especially, it's not that it's not good. I enjoyed it and got really invested in the story. It's that it is literally dark. And so I visually couldn't parse a lot of the scenes because we also talk, one of the things I think you didn't like, Jen, was that there were so many characters. So a lot of characters I didn't recognize against very dark and visually busy backgrounds. I couldn't tell, field from ground. I really struggled visually with this comic. So my history with comics is not great because when I did read for pleasure, I read prose. The first comics I got, oh man, Captain Planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
Woohoo!
Awesome.
Dad took me to the comic book store and I think he really wanted to get me interested to Batman, which was kind of his thing. I didn't recognize Batman. I was 8. The campy series didn't quite engage me yet, even though Dad watched it a fair amount, but I knew Captain Planet and liked him. So I got Captain Planet comic books. And kind of read some sporadic titles off of my parents' bookshelves as a teen and young adult. So like The Killing Joke, like that whole graphic novelization kind of grew up on that.
Stay tuned for a later episode.
That is this season. We will be doing the movie Joker, and then we'll be doing The Killing Joke.
Oh, man. Okay. So then I can be like, hey, guys, I'm back. So, yeah, I guess I don't have a very lengthy history of comic books. I chose this one because I did really enjoy the movies. And because I haven't been super into comic books, sometimes the comic book movies can miss a fan who hasn't been on board for a while. So recognized this one and liked it, but it was the story was not a chore. Reading a graphic novel, especially this one, was a chore for me. And yeah, I can't imagine you get that a lot. Everyone else is probably like, I love graphic
novels. We did a
novels.
lot of Alan Moore.
Yeah.
So
as far as dark and difficult to visually parse.
Yeah. Although probably you might be more comfortable with it because a lot of words.
Yeah,
very
a lot
wordy.
of text.
And I will say I am a big Transmet fan. All 10 of those.
Woohoo!
Crank those
Got
up.
the
Right, got another
the
one.
mention in
Yeah.
every so
Every
the number
once
one
in
is
every
on the-
episode.
Oh, shit. Yeah.
signed by Derek Robertson, who's the artist.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. I mentioned Transmet almost every episode. It's my number one favorite.
Well, but this is the second episode in a row that the guest has mentioned.
Also
Transnet.
true.
And
True.
Yeah, so I guess I can say that because I've kind of enjoyed more like less mainstream, because there is a little bit of a gateway barrier. Like there are some gatekeepers for Batman, Superman, like the big things. Easier to get into like Vertigo comics and other courses and things in college. So
Yep.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Shit, when you ask me about it, I read more comics than I think I do. Like that question really
See, there
made
you
me
go.
scared for a second.
Ha-ha!
Well, and I have to say, I understand where you're coming from and your difficulty with graphic novels.
Mm.
I don't share that difficulty, but I had that trouble with this graphic novel.
Okay, that makes
I
me
had
feel
a
less
really
like a
hard
freakazoid.
time. Like, I'm like, who is this? Who the fuck is that? Is that what's going on? And then they don't. It's like they introduce characters. Sometime they have their name right next to them,
Right.
and then they introduce some characters, and then they either never say who they are
Mhm.
or whatever. And then I'm like, wait, what's this? What's that? What's going on? Who is this? Revengers? What the hell?
How
So-
many different worlds are there?
There's a story in my family that I'm really, really quick going to say because it breaks down the two reactions I had to people in this comic. And it's when I was 16 years old, I took my family went to go visit my grandmother down in Puerto Rico. We took my best friend Tom at the time with us. My uncle lived with my grandmother at the time, and he's a man that just never quite like grew up. He's like very Peter Panish. So
Like me.
we get in, like, it's late. We've been on a plane. We're put into a room. My sister is sleeping with my parents, and my brother, who's 3 years younger than me, my best friend, who's a year younger. And so it's a 16-year-old, a 15-year-old, and a 13-year-old, like in a room. My uncle comes home at 2 a.m, plowed, and goes into this room because he knows we're here. And he's like, everybody wake up, wake up.
Hey.
Joshua, you're my nephew, and I love you. Philip,
It's me. It's
you're my
everything.
nephew, and I love you. And then he sees Tom and goes, who the fuck are you? So, like, reading this comic, I'm like, Space Lord, I know you, and I love you. Drax, I know you, and I love you. And then I see, like, fucking
Quasar.
Quasar. Who the fuck are you? Yeah.
Yes. Or as I like to say, Satanic Hulk.
Oh, there was a moment.
Yeah. Sita Hulk.
I do have to say though, Sarah, I appreciate your difficulties that you were having. I have almost the exact opposite response actually.
Right.
Sometime in my like late 20s, early 30s, again, no longer reading for pleasure because got out of college, got into the workforce, busting my ass,
Right.
5 to 7 days a week.
Yeah.
Got to the point where I actually can't read a lot of text. Like if I sit down to read a normal novel, I will
hard to
be
absorb.
I will flat out be asleep within 10 pages. But unlike the rest of my crew here, like when we go, Josh and I had this conversation, should we buy more graphic novels? Who wants hard copy? Who wants digital? I'm the first one to be like, I want hard copy. I can sit and I can read these. I can enjoy them. I can absorb them, but normal text cannot do for some reason.
Right. And Jenn is very much she has her tablet. She wants everything on digital.
Right.
Once we find a reader that she enjoys more than the ones that are on the Fire. She's always been looking for one that she likes, but very much, digital is the way to go for her. I can go either way. So
If I have to write something, I type much faster than I write. And so the digital format for anything I have to interact with. But the ability, especially for something this dark, the ability to hold the page and like turn it different angles really physically helped me and not I mean, would not have worked on a tablet.
I would definitely, like we were saying before, I would definitely look at some of the Alan Moore stuff because the artwork is far more simple, not a super, like, not a lot of like high detail stuff that you have to try and focus on visually. Usually there's also a ton of like monochrome, if not necessarily black and white, but like, you know, like when you get into Swamp Thing, it's like shades of green, and things that you might be able to focus on a little bit easier.
And what I have seen of him, I really liked, like doing a whole page that is maybe a picture of one person holstering a gun, but it's got 8 different blocks of text that I'm reading as I'm going visually through that one picture.
Yes, he's very verbally descriptive as well.
I think specifically back to when we were doing From Hell, and we were sitting there and talking with my brother, and it's just a lot of very simple pictures, a lot of black and white with maybe a splash of red or some other color here or there. Things that might be easier for you to process.
Black and white might actually be harder though. Straight black and white, because then the figure ground issue is still, it's hard to make things look far away.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think about that. Sure.
Yeah, if we start talking about the fact that Drax in this comic book is, I'm just going to come out and say it, way less autistic.
Yeah.
And I mean that as a straight up descriptor and not an insult at all. Autism spectrum disorders run in my immediate family.
Right.
But because autism spectrum disorders run in my immediate family, my parents have checked out a couple books on the subject. And I ended up reading them, and some of the visual stuff I have overlaps with autism spectrum disorders, which I socially and linguistically do not think I struggle with at all. But you know, reading,
well, it's sensory. A lot of it is sensory.
Yep. Cut the seams off my sock toes. 7 through 10 holes in my socks.
I have 2 children who
But you sewed a lot of holes where tags have been cut out of
things.
One
of them was more light dark. That's Alex, my older one. And then the younger one was definitely tags. Anything
touching, rubbing, touching.
Yeah, that was not good.
I think that's part of why I'm so fidgety.
So speaking of the differences between characters in this book, let's move. Sarah, you've given us a great view on how you felt kind of going through the book. Jenn, I believe you had a very strong reaction.
That doesn't sound like Jenn.
Not at all. Not at all. What? Strong reaction? Me? Opinions? What? I felt like, I want to say it's a Naked Gun movie where someone is just like trying to talk to someone and they're just physically having things thrown at their face while they're trying to talk. That's kind of how I felt reading this graphic novel in the regards to characters in the novel. It was like, I'm reading and I'm like, what? Who's that? Wait, what's going on? There's
Who the fuck are you?
It's like you're trying to have a conversation while somebody's throwing darts past your head at a dartboard.
Yeah, well, but I really literally felt like someone was throwing kind of damp socks at my face. That was kind of the feeling that I had. I'm like, this is not just slightly annoying. This is really annoying. And it's kind of distracting me from being able to kind of get what the narrative is and what the story is.
The damn sock's name was Nova.
Thank you. Oh, it wasn't World Mind?
World Mind was awkward and made the comic difficult.
Or the Revengers, or come on. I mean, how many characters do you need? Also, why do the spaceships have faces? I mean, there was a scene in the graphic novel where they're like spaceships and they all have giant faces. They look like trains with giant faces.
Sometimes when you take a lot of spice.
Listen, you'll see things no one else can see and do things no one else can do.
Right. So
and everything has a face. Like you can talk to everything.
Right, but why does it all have to look like a giant Pez dispenser? I mean, come on.
Doom.
Be a little more creative.
Yeah. I imagine that might be a space Marvel thing. So I want to say, well, first of all, I don't know if we've even introduced the comic that we read for this.
We read
No, we haven't. We have not talked about it yet.
I did the assignment.
Which is the Thanos Imperative. In looking for a Guardians of the Galaxy story, this is the one that in the last 10 years has been the highest regarded. I am not a space Marvel person. And And in fact, I was very hesitant to go and see the Guardians of the Galaxy movie because I am not a space Marvel person.
I'm just here processing that's like a subcategory. It's kind of like when you start learning too much about furries, like
Yeah. No, like, you can get really specific, but you are not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah.
You
No,
are
it's true.
not wrong.
So this reminds me of being on the opposite end of this. I was having a conversation at a bar with some old coworkers, and I was trying to explain that I preferred hard sci-fi, like Larry Niven and Arthur C. Clarke, more technical based sci-fi versus like soft sci-fi, which I also enjoy, and McCaffrey, things like that. Right. And this woman's just here like
Yeah.
Hard sci-fi. Like the idea that you divided you divided nerds that precisely was
Does hard sci-fi have cocks in it?
That was exactly what she wanted to know.
We are nerds. Of course we're going to divide things.
What?
Right.
That's the nature.
That's
of
just
the
what we
game.
do. It's the nature of being a nerd. We sit down and we label things. We put little tags on it, and we say, "Oh,
And
you're
if we understand that it's on a spectrum. We put a lot of labels on it.
right.
Yes,
You're a CCG gamer, or you're a TCG gamer, or you're a
Why do you think label makers are so popular and sell so well? Come on.
right.
That was what my stepdaughter stole from the utility drawer. Now that I'm starting to clean out this house, I'm finding, like, first of all, everything she touched is coated in a fine layer of foundation. Just everything. Bronzer. Everywhere.
So what I'm hearing is that you need a label maker.
Yeah, no, I'm also just finding strips of like random words in label maker. I'm like, you fucker, this is what you were doing. Like, we use this for things, and you just wrote like Taylor less than 3. Like, god damn it. But yes, they are clearly universally cool label makers. Podcast.
Yeah.
Woo!
So, Space Marvel. We talked a little bit about it in everyone's favorite episode, Dark Phoenix.
Oh my god.
Because that is a great
don't-
example. That's a great example of half of that comic is an X-Men on Earth comic. And generally, that's probably the part I'm interested in. The other half
It's Space Marvel.
is Space Marvel. Yes, it's like alien races putting people on trial, and Professor X having to leave Earth to get laid. And
I feel like it sounds to me like what Space Marvel is like 1935 through 1945 of just like making up shit for comics. Like this superhero, this superhero, this superhero. Then Space Marvel was like, we can have them all because they aliens.
right,
Yeah.
right.
Because
So now
nobody
it's like-
can tell us it's wrong.
Exactly. I'm an alien that shoots gummy bears from my fingers.
Yeah.
On my planet, we call it Snarfblarg. It's like a little cheap.
I
Can
have
we
to
have-
say, I am a fan of Snarfblar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. Nah. I like the red Snarfblar the best, but the pineapple's fine. Yeah.
Can we have Hulk for this? No, you can't have Hulk. He's involved in too many things. So what if
But what if we put horns on him?
we get
Wait,
Hulk,
wait.
but he's from the Lovecraft universe,
Right.
and we stick horns on him?
All right.
Fan of
Here's
Hulk.
I got to jump in here because this is where we were talking last night. I literally did not read this comic until last night.
Yeah.
And I was drinking, and I started this whole comic off, and we were having a conversation. We were texting back and forth while I was reading this, and I seriously thought this was going to turn into another Dark Phoenix. And I'm going to tell you right now, I love this comic. I don't know how or why, but I started off reading this going, it had the same conversation, the same thing going on in my head, the whole, who the fuck are you?
Right.
But
Once you
literally,
let
like,
that go, it does get a little easier.
I did. I gave up all pretense of trying to
I don't care. I don't
about
care who you
new
are.
characters being thrown at me, and I just kind of ran with the plot line and went, oh my god, they took a Cthulhu storyline and just slapped Marvel characters on
Yes.
it. This is so
Yes.
awesome.
Yes.
And then, of course, we jump out with, Cancerverse Hulk with massive horns, and I'm just like, and he doesn't die.
And I understand that Lovecraft and the fandom has like a really long, storied, and sometimes uncomfortable history, but it was distracting to me as someone who had not grown up with that, because every time I saw Footangan, in my head it was the professor from Futurama, the awkward scientist from The Simpsons.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah.
Footangan!
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
And every time one of these angry, monsters was like cussing in my head, it was Footangan! You're like,
Yes. No.
then Hoiven Noi. Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
100% of the
Got
time.
it. Got it. Yeah.
In my drunken reading last night, I literally have pages of just fanboying out over the fact that there was so many Lovecraft references in here.
Yes.
So many Lovecraft
I've got a
references.
specific episode of LeVar Burton Reads that you need to catch up on if you
Yes,
haven't. Yeah.
I actually haven't heard any of LeVar Burton reads, but it'll probably happen since I'm quarantining because of COVID issues.
Start with Shoggoth and Traffic.
That sounds amazing.
You're right. I'm not wrong. Yeah. No, it's good.
If you can find it, there is an entire musical called Shoggoth on the Roof, where they
I have heard-
rewrote
Yes,
all of
Fiddler on the Roof. Yeah,
I hate you.
tentacles.
Why have you not exposed me to this?
You don't
before?
like parody stuff.
I'm
It's
actually kind of
Lovecraft.
surprised. I would have figured, Jennifer, you'd have been
There are
all
exceptions,
over this.
and they start with it's Lovecraft.
Yeah. It's a Bayaki, Bayaki, fly me through space. Take me away, far from this place.
Tentacles.
Yeah.
Tentacles.
Yes.
I haven't even seen it yet. I've just had so many people recite it
If
to me that I know bits and pieces.
multi-flanged Man.
No, I'm trying to remember what that one is, but I haven't listened to it in years. But anyway, back to this comic.
Podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the actual movie because, like I said, not a fan of Space Marvel, wasn't going to go see it.
It's not Space Marvel, it's Space Cowboy Marvel.
And yes.
Is that
Well,
a sub?
Well, the movie is.
Right.
The comic is
this
not.
is not
That is-
Cowboys.
yeah.
That is
That's how I'd
space,
sum it up.
Space Marvel. Yeah. No, the
Hard
movie.
Space Marvel.
The movie is. I was shocked at how good the movie was.
So it's got a giant tree, and it's got a talking raccoon that likes guns, and it's got
Prosthetics.
basically Han Solo. And it's got
Han
a super
Solo of
badass.
70s music.
Yeah, it's got a super badass chick.
I liked it when it was called Firefly. I'm gonna like it now.
I liked it when it was called Cowboy Bebop.
And I'm gonna like it now. Hey, toast to Firefly and Cowboy Bebop.
There you go. Yeah.
Clink COVID, clink fit.
Okay, we're not going to go there.
One of the things that I actually really enjoyed about the movie was that it didn't have your standard party get together.
No.
Like,
Yes.
it was like 3 different groups all coming together to either get the thing or get the person that was going to get the thing because we could get money for the person. And then we all ended up in a clink together.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
then the last member joined us.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, and then the last member
they're in the
joined us.
prison anyway.
Yeah.
There to once again there to get one of the people in the party.
Yeah, right. No, very, very well done. Very, we watched it the other night, and what I noticed was it's, and I hesitate to use this word because everybody's going to go tee. It's a very tight movie.
Yeah.
You were right, and you already fed me alcohol.
But it was the beats are very do like it is.
As a person with a theater background, like that's a good script. The
Yeah.
gun in the first act leads
Yes.
to someone getting shot in the third act. There's no
Yeah.
wasted information or time there.
Right.
And I would say that's often an issue with Marvel movies in general or comic book movies in general because there's always too much to put in the movie.
Right.
I
And
would-
so sometimes they put shit in because they're like, I cannot have this in. And then it's like, why was that even there? That
I
should
would-
not.
I would argue that is the problem with the second Guardians of the Galaxy movie, which I do love, but there is too much, like, you don't have that beat. You don't have, like, there's too much, and then this happens, and then this over here, and then we go, yeah, and we need a storyline with this person.
Because
and then,
eventually,
Right.
it's the gun in the drawer in the first act does come up, but because that got stretched into 2 and now 3,
yeah,
it doesn't feel. You're right. It's not as toit.
right. Right, and that's what I really liked about the first one. Is it is a movie that I can sit down and be
That's
like,
what everyone always likes about the first, Josh.
yeah,
It's tight.
Thank you,
I-
Sarah.
Yeah, just went straight for that one. But yes.
Hey, at least we didn't have to do it. We don't get in trouble for this because if the girls are going to bring it up, it's fine.
yeah. But unlike that example, the first one knew what it
10
was
seconds.
doing.
Wait, what? Oh. No. I was just going to go back to the example. Do you think girls don't know that's a thing? Like,
I don't know what you're looking at me
anatomy.
for. Stare over at the screen over there. You got yourself in trouble. You were even by pointing out you couldn't get in trouble. You just fucking got yourself.
I did. Got myself in trouble.
You're in
It's me.
trouble.
What else was I gonna do?
Generally. So that was definitely a theme in the comic book, I thought. A little it was noticed the sexualization of women was noticeable enough that I went back to the author page, and sure enough, in all of these names, there's one that doesn't have a wiener. Uno. Editor Rachel Pinelas. No, that doesn't have an N-A over it. Pinelas?
Pinellas.
Yeah.
With John Denning.
They are both assistant editors, so I don't know what kind of power that has. But
Well, it has the word assistant right before it.
I
so.
mean, I'll look for it. Yeah.
Well, and yeah.
That was a good example.
Well, yes, and you also in the comic have woman getting kidnapped, guy having to go rescue woman, then leaving her because she cannot be
Right.
risked.
I can't risk
Yes.
you. Yeah, absolutely. I can't risk you. You can't. I can't put you in danger.
Yeah, where's the fucking Captain
Oh,
Marvel
yes,
in
just
this?
the strap-on Cthulhu rape machine.
Yes.
Like,
Yeah.
that's super. Wowzers. There it was. Yeah, and that's right before, that's my
Strap-on
boyfriend.
Cthulhu Rape Machine is the name of my Guar cover band.
Oh, all right. Yeah, that was good. Yeah, that was good. But also, like, super visually hard to parse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Gnarly.
Oh, there's a lot of like pink light,
yes.
like designs.
And that pink light on purple creatures, like,
Yeah,
someone
which
can
is
think
just
that through.
like a Marvel thing.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that was
That's the Doctor Strange.
Yeah, they changed it
Magic.
to orange in the Doctor Strange like
Magic.
movie
I
stuff,
thought it
but
was green.
Oh, I
in,
thought no, was it? I thought it was still kind of pinky tinged
It's
in
like
the
fire.
movies.
Red.
Yeah, it's
no,
like
it
orange.
was more of a fire.
No, it was not.
Oh, boy. Just smell it.
Well, I
smell
guess
it
we're gonna do
once.
Doctor Strange in season 4 just to prove it.
I'm sorry, Bear.
I'm sorry. What did you
Sarah was telling me to smell her finger.
Smell my finger.
My pinky tinge. Ah.
Anyways, yeah, I missed that because I'm not in the room.
Oh. Podcasts in a time of pain.
Aw, Jen, did you have to be weird like that? Yeah, you
Yes.
Yeah, you did.
did. Is this going to turn into one of those
Yeah.
episodes where we drink every time something's weird?
No,
No, because we'd be on the floor.
And they've done this twice.
I don't have that much liquor.
Yikes.
So,
That's why
Yeah,
I
a lot
moved
of-
on to
a lot
beer.
of that.
there you go. But yes, the movie was extremely surprising for me. And in fact, I believe that it was Lucas Green, our friend Lucas, that had basically said, no, you got to give this a shot. You got to get, because he's a big Space Marvel guy.
Yeah.
And I went and I left, and the first thing I did was post on Facebook that Lucas was right, because this was
and I remembered that when I was reading,
Mhm.
and I thought, who loves this, the book, the graphic novel, who loves the graphic novel would look at that movie and say, oh yeah, totally.
Right.
It's a complete disconnect for me.
And I don't know that that's a bad thing, because
Right.
like Josh mentioned, that movie only had what it needed. Everything was necessary
Yeah.
and sufficient. It was
I
perfect.
agree.
Yeah.
I think the movie was amazing.
But agreed. Yeah.
But
How
I
can
can't-
you
I
like
can't-
this version
Yeah.
and then be like the
and
movie?
be like, oh yeah, the movie was excellent. You'd be like, it's missing so much. Yeah.
The top of the list,
So-
Cosmo.
So, Bear, as the large proponent of the comic, then,
Yeah. Did you
what
like the movie?
elements did you connect from the movie, like the source material that we knew? Or was it just, it happened to be so different and you still liked it? It just hit your
I
taste?
honestly don't think that there was really no story elements between the movie and the comic that really gripped me. I mean, obviously the comic book is taking place after the Infinity War movie, really, isn't it?
Oh yeah, no,
What I'm
it's
saying?
it's
So-
a fairly recent. I'm trying to look at the copyright on it.
Not mega.
But I'm talking about in the Marvel timeline in general.
2014.
Yeah.
So
I'm
in
talking
the
about-
comic book, yeah.
Yeah, I'm talking about in the Marvel timeline in general. The
Right.
the
The
cancerverse
movie.
Mhm.
line takes place after the Infinity War.
Yes,
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. 'Cause-
far after. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there were so many great little I don't even know if I want to call them Easter eggs. There were so many great little one-liners that tied into so many other things. For example, when our group goes into the cancerverse, they take Thanos into the cancerverse, and you hear that quote, the first people that they run into, which is right before the first fight that they get into, the line that pops up is that they say, "Our universe has extraordinary things to offer you," and my brain immediately clicked over to Event Horizon. Yes, exactly. Where we have such wonderful things to show you, and I'm just like, and of course, I've been drinking at this point in time because it's a Friday night, and I'm reading a comic book and trying to burn through this before we do the episode, and I'm like, when the Event Horizon teleport, did its whole its drive and engine drive kicked in? Did it just hop into the cancerverse and then come back? Is that what happened there?
So real quick, we have gotten a little bit into the comics, so I just want to give a basic overview. That there is another universe where they have killed death, and that is what the cancerverse is.
And they actually talk about that on the back cover of the book. They actually mention, so it's not a real spoiler because if you're going to pick up the comic book, it's right there.
Right. So in a universe without death, you run out of space. Which is why it's called the cancerverse. And in fact, they even describe it as when the gateway opens between the cancerverse and the Marvel verse that they're working with, it's like cutting open a boil.
Right. Lancing a boil.
Lancing a boil where things shoot into because it is so tightly packed in the cancerverse.
And
but I also
really
saw, go ahead, Sarah.
From a medical professional standpoint, I mean, that's what cancer is. It's your body trying to not die.
Yes.
And so it's like, hey, these cells figured out how to not die. We're going to make a whole bunch more of those. It's cool that it's not lung tissue because we're never going to die. But then that's the problem.
Yeah.
So, I love that it was literally biologically, that's what cancer is. You turn off death and things get fuckity.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, and it's a great story that I have not run into previously, which is not,
you can't say that.
Not that often.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the idea is that there's this whole other universe where death was eliminated. Right. Well, what are the consequences of that? Mm-hmm. And it's so good. And then you have to turn to, okay, well, basically, who is the Marvel Universe's #1 authority on death? Thanos.
Exactly.
So now we have to work with him to try and, and solve the issue. It's really, really good in theory. I do find that there was too much filler. I don't think it should have been 6 issues. I would have been fine with 4.
Sure.
And you probably could, Jen says 3. But I think you could, in 4, you can get enough in there, but you can get rid of some of the extraneous stuff.
I absolutely agree with that because I think you could trim out most of the first and most of the last one because the last one is just
straight
it's straight up setting up the next organization of superheroes. The first one is a little too much prep time. Like we could have, that's where I was bored. That's where I was just like, this is going to suck. This is going to be Dark Phoenix all over again. And then by the time I got into the second one, then I was just no, we're good.
Don't do it again.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
And I was going to throw out, while I'm sure it's not what Jen wants to hear, as a person who was not like a Lovecraftian fan, they kind of could have cut all that out. Like, never dying is bad enough. Cancerverse is bad enough. It doesn't have to be never dying and turning into squid Cthulhu monsters. Like, the fuck? Like, Hulk resurrecting was scary enough. I will throw out that as someone who struggled to visually understand this comic, it was helpful that the bad guys had red eyes. Because they could pick them the fuck out.
Yes, that is true. Well, the thing that I love about Lovecraft is that, the truth of it for the characters, you either die or you go mad and then you die.
Right.
Whee! So it's like, well, there is no happy ending here.
Yeah.
It's which one do you want?
Right.
Do you want to live longer and see yourself go crazy and then die?
Right. That's the other rule of anything Lovecraft is if you are the person that is, because usually it's a lot of 1920 stuff.
Yeah.
But if you are the person that is fortunate enough to have the 6-shooter, only fire 5 bullets.
Right.
You always keep the last one for yourself.
Oh,
exactly.
That's super appropriate for this year.
Yeah,
Like, listen,
right.
just don't.
Keep
Just
one
save
for
them.
yourself.
Yeah.
Save all 6 because you never know what's going to fucking happen in
Oh my
2020.
God, yeah.
I want to throw out something just because I thought it was really cool. I'll put a spoiler alert up probably for about 30 to 45 seconds here. There was a big hint for me, like with a lot of the stuff that was going on, that gave me a very much into the Spider-Verse feel because we're starting to deal with death totems and how Thanos is a death totem for our universe, and that's a plot point, story point in there. And I really got that feel. I really got pulled back into the Spider-Verse moment because of that.
So we mentioned this a little bit in our Deadpool episode in season 2, but it's never really explained explicitly in this, and it might be an aha moment for Sarah in this. So the Thanos in the Marvel comics, the reason that he's looking to kill half of the universe has nothing to do with like the comic book or the movie's Thanos.
Yeah.
It is that he is in love with death.
Yeah. Okay.
And he wants to make death happy and get death's attention. And so he's going to kill half the universe. Like that is his whole thing.
Nice.
So this is like stepping that up.
Okay.
And also has some of the stuff with his relationship with death.
Which is
interesting. And
was
again,
it supposed
another
to be funny? I found it kind of funny.
So it depends on how you're running it, because it is kind of laughable especially when you get to the point that it is done for laughs, because Death is actually in love with Deadpool.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that one yet. Yeah.
Who Death can never have.
Of course. Yeah.
Like in Deadpool 2, when he keeps dying and going down, a lot of the times in the comics, that's not because Wade doesn't have a girlfriend in the comics and stuff.
Right.
That's usually Death, that he spends that couple of minutes with and then gets sucked back up.
Right.
In the comics, that's Death.
Because she loves him. Okay.
Yes.
Nice.
Has anyone else here or any of our listeners seen The Spirit?
I have not seen The Spirit.
It's Josh, it's on the Vudu account, and I've told you so many times that you need to watch The Spirit.
Oh, you're in trouble.
I feel like I've seen
it's done a lot like Sin City and the Black.
I feel like I have,
Plus
but it would be one of those things that it was like playing at someone's house, and I said, when did it come out?
Oh, I could look it up.
Early 2000s?
Something like that.
So. Yeah.
Okay. Then yes, I think it was playing at a party that I was at, and I'm vaguely aware of what it is, but I could not tell you anything plot-wise.
You get that same moment of
2008.
Of a superhero that can't die, and anytime he comes close to death, they call her Lorelei in The Spirit.
Definitely.
And any time that he is like unconscious and near death, he has that moment with her where they're having a conversation and stuff. Plus, for you V-LARPers out there, it is the best interpretation I have ever seen of a pack of blood brothers. So watch that movie. Like, you should watch that when you're between your episodes of Umbrella Academy tonight, Josh.
Along with Pan's Labyrinth.
Yeah, we're gonna have to take a break after Pan's Labyrinth, I'm pretty sure.
Well, that's what Umbrella Academy is for.
No, well, I need to pay attention to it. That's fine. That's fine.
That counts.
Okay. Other comments on Guardians of the Galaxy?
Well, we haven't talked about the movie that much.
Well,
we really haven't.
On that.
Absolutely. So I would say, other than going into the movie without any foreknowledge of the graphic novel at all, I was delighted. And I want to say that it's one of the best Marvel superhero movies that's out there. It's so well done.
Yeah.
The plot is amazing. And I love that it's not, like characters that are not well known prior to the movie coming out.
Sure.
It's I think that's kind of a realm of comic books that wasn't really as well known as the others.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah.
And so I think
this is another one that was completely like Hellboy for me. That was, I didn't know what this was, and are you kidding me? This is tied into everything else in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, completely. It just it was a surprise. It was a delight. Honestly, it was a delight, and I really enjoyed the movie. But I also loved the placement of, I thought that especially after reading the graphic novel, the way that the first movie was set up and how they scaled it way, way back as far as the number of characters, they introduced the right characters, I think.
Right, yeah.
Although it was interesting, some of the characters that were antagonists in the movie were not necessarily antagonists in the graphic novel.
Sure, yeah.
Well, and they were originally antagonists, so like Ronan has had a character arc.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was the biggest one for me. Was the wasn't this the bad guy in the movie that we watched?
Yes.
I was like, okay, I'm just running with this.
Yeah, now he's hanging out on the moon with the Inhumans.
Right.
And for me, I just kind of rolled with it, assuming it was ignorance. Like, oh, maybe it's a different one. Or now it's whatever.
Pretty much the exact same thing for me.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the other thing is anytime, and this is another issue I have with Space Marvel, but I lump Inhumans into Space Marvel since they live on the moon. We are the Moon
hated that series.
Well, yes. Well, first of all, the show was horrendous.
Yes.
But the movie Guardians of the Galaxy did what the Inhuman show could not, and that's take these characters that I could not have given two craps about and make them super interesting, and the Inhumans kind of did the opposite. I mean, fortunately, they didn't screw up Lockjaw, but how do you screw up a giant teleporting dog? But
say Lockjaw, I didn't watch Inhumans. You say Lockjaw, and I just go straight back to like 80s He-Man animated series.
No, jeez.
Yeah, no. Lockjaw's a giant teleporting dog. Right. He's amazing. But all dogs are amazing, so but yeah, it's the difference in how you can take a property and weave it through. And James Gunn takes a lot of that credit.
Right.
I mean, the music choices, which then you'll notice an uptick in the quality of music in every other Marvel movie moving forward after Guardians of the Galaxy.
It's true. But the thing that I like is the graphic novel hooked in like characters from Earth, from what we know as Earth, but not in a way that I cared about. I think that Guardians of the Galaxy did a really good job of just like, I mean, they basically said Peter Quill was from Earth, and that's all we knew. And that was the smallest part of that movie. But it's what invested us in that character and every character that they cared about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Because you've got to have that similarity. You've got to have that connection somehow.
And I know as an original Farscape fan, that was my first fan.
Farscape.
Taking it back to 1999 and Australia. I
want a little dude that just floats around in my house and farts helium. That's all I want.
I still got some leftover helium balloons from my birthday. I should have, coulda, shoulda, woulda brought them to the podcast. But I like. There's a reason why the one Earthling lost in space trope is such a trope. It gives you something to hang your hat on, and someone else who is moving through this bizarre world with you and going, "Who the fuck are you?" Like it gives you that anchor. And I think it's arguable that if more of the Thanos Imperative were written from Peter Quill's perspective, I think we would have had more support. It would have felt more accessible moving through this bizarre world.
They kind of do that though, because they do it with Nova, who is from Earth and is the last remaining member of the Nova Corps.
Right.
And they touch on that because they talk about how the Peter Quill in this is jaded. Is jaded because he's been through so many of these adventures. So you are kind of following a lot with Nova to get that Earthling perspective. They could have done more with it for sure.
And having this comic book storyline be so far ahead, and like I was into the Guardians of the Galaxy, that was kind of hard because referring to this one dude as Nova when my last experience was the Nova Corps, and they were not humans. Like, let's be honest, we all know Glenn Close is superhuman. So
and John C. Reilly, there's no way that dude is human.
Fuck
in any
no!
way.
Have you seen that hair?
Right?
Yeah, straight up. So that threw a little that didn't feel like a human perspective to me because my exposure from the movie was that the Nova Corps was this. So, but it's the same reason why I liked Mal. He was very, the battle flashbacks was very Malcolm Reynolds.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think that's that's another thing. I mean, touching on Mel, it's like the hero in Guardians of the Galaxy, if we're going to say that
there is a hero.
Well,
a
right.
singular
If
hero.
we're going to say it's the person from Earth, it's they constantly are battling with their flaws.
Right.
They're constantly battling with their inability to be what they envision themselves as great.
They're human.
Right.
Exactly.
They're human. They're human.
Very
And that's
fundamentally,
and that's what brings you in. It's like you can have aliens all over the place and you can be like, oh, I really like them.
Right.
But you don't identify with them because they're not human.
Yeah, they're not from where you're from. Exactly right.
And sometimes they're Lovecraftian beasts from the cancerverse.
Right.
Sometimes.
Seriously.
Hey, I love things with tentacles. Not in a biblical sense.
That's my favorite thing to yell at karaoke when my husband goes up. I know that guy in the biblical sense. Nerdery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whoever laughs, you're like, we can be friends.
Come find me after this. If you liked that joke and the song I'm singing, let me buy you a drink.
Raise your hand.
How do adults make friends? I'm just going to keep trying.
Yeah.
Ooh, sorry, got way distracted.
All right. Other topics to jump in before the last question.
I have one last random thought that I wrote down in my drunken notes from last night, and it's literally I just it's scrawled in the middle of the page with a question mark after that, and says, "Is this linked to Riddick's Necromongers?"
Bless you.
Twat?
What? Chronicles of Riddick, the
Yes.
Necromongers.
Yep.
Yeah, well, Pitch Black being one of the only movies I've ever walked out of.
That's because you have no taste.
It's got Claudia Black in it. Did you
Right.
make it through when she dies?
I made it, yes, towards the end when
It's
they all
got-
suddenly decide to trust the inmate.
No.
When they're all like, well, apparently this is the only man that can save us. I'm like, no,
But it's got one of the
done.
best lines in a movie ever. Seriously, one of the best. Like two characters. We each get one line or two lines. Sorry, I thought you said it was clear. I said it looked clear. Well, how's it look now? Looks clear. Like, how do you not? That's awesome. Like after what you just saw in that movie.
You can boil that down to two better lines. You give me bad directions. No,
I give you wrong directions. Yes, that's only twice this season that we've quoted Shanghai Noon. We'll have to do it again.
Well, that's because earlier this month we were drinking and you kept going uno mash.
That's because it was almost your birthday, and you pulled out the bottle of Fireball.
That's
It
true.
was so bad.
Oh, no.
It was
The next day, in her hungover state, Jen just started giggling. And I'm like, what's going on? She's like, I just, in my mind, had Bear uno mash.
I had a plan that night because I am not a fan of cinnamon.
Strategery.
I am not a fan of cinnamon, and Josh has a love affair with Fireball. And so my plan was, if I can get Josh drunk enough off of Fireball that he pukes, I may never have to see a bottle of Fireball again.
And you are wrong, sir.
I was wrong.
And you are so wrong,
First
sir.
part of the plan, a success. Second part,
I mean,
you were
I
very
didn't have a
wrong.
hangover the next day. He did, but
I actually didn't. She did.
I did.
no.
And I refused. I refused after the first.
You only took like 2 shots.
Two.
We took like 4 or 5 each.
Yeah.
When they were the big double.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot. That sounds fun. Let's do that.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. You first.
I will proctor. Here you go, and here you go.
There you go.
For the
Go.
first 2 shots, I also played Fireball by Pitbull.
That helps.
Well, he started on the second one, and I was like, really?
My category of music that I like is music that I could sing to or dance to. So I unironically like music that I'm like, no, that's objectively bad. Like that qualifies as bad music, but can't help
Yes, this
See,
is
I'm
going
half
to
Puerto
be.
Rican, so I can say "caught to the blood."
it.
If we ever do a Patreon, we need this moment in the video of Sarah chair dancing because it's It's pretty good.
Yeah, that helps. Great. That was definitely a theme in this comic. Hey guys, the battle got so bad that all the abstracts, the giant space creatures have showed up. You're gonna see all of them once, and then you're only gonna see the one with titties here on out.
Yeah.
Right?
Mysteriously, there's always an explosion going on somewhere around her vagina, letting you know that maybe we didn't Barbie doll it. Maybe there's like a spaceport there. You don't know. That was very noticeable.
Yeah.
Vagina explosions.
A wormhole.
Oh.
Has this comic inspired you to read more Guardians of the Galaxy?
To read more Guardians of the Galaxy specifically, probably no, unfortunately not. Because I think, as we've all agreed, the movie is they did better writing a story and a script in the movie. And I'm very story driven. I was really worried I was gonna accidentally spoil later Guardians of the Galaxy movies, because it's really hard for me to parse which part of the story is in which movie.
Right.
But I think comics in general, I was reminded of the fact that, yeah, this takes a little more visual effort at the time, but it is a pretty quick read, and it is action-packed and exciting, and I could see myself taking myself back through a transmet reread, or something like that.
I'm just gonna warn you, it's rough right now.
Yeah, I have been hearing some of those news. Is bad time.
It's because Trump is the beast.
Also,
I mean-
Which means
bad
we've got the Smiler still to come.
Yeah.
also just as bad as the Judge Dredd read was.
Oh, yeah.
God,
Oh,
yeah,
man.
that was rough.
That's
No, well, Judge Dredd, I will encourage you once we drop the episode to listen to it, because
Sure.
there is a lot of overlap on how that world fails and where we are right now. Yeah, it's
Yep.
rough. And it was written in 2003.
right.
Yeah, almost prophetic. actually.
Yeah. I feel like I remember hearing these, I've seen that meme that's like, I remember when Bush came out with the Department of Homeland Security, and I said it was going to get used to disappear people into vans, and everyone told me to stop smoking so much pot in my dorm room. Like, I've heard all these theories
Yep.
before
Yes.
from someone real fucking high, and now it's on MSNBC. Like,
Yep.
ooh, boy.
Colorado will run the world.
Well,
There you
I'm
go.
okay with
start
that.
somewhere.
Bear,
Sweet.
obviously you've said that you enjoyed this. Has this encouraged you to read Guardians of the Galaxy?
That's a tough call, because this isn't really a Guardians of the Galaxy comic. I love the movie. I loved this particular graphic novel because of the fact that it was exceptionally Lovecraftian, and I got to a point where I was just like, fuck all the characters that are being literally thrown at my face like wet socks, as Jen said. I'm just here for the lulls.
Anyone
Like,
who was ever a teenage boy, wet socks means something way different.
right?
Different.
Also, anybody that is a parent of a teenage boy understands what wet socks are. But this was a very even enjoying it for the plot content that I loved. This was a difficult read. I don't know that I would recommend this to people as their next jumping off point from watching Guardians of the Galaxy. I don't know what to point them to instead, because I'm not familiar with the rest of the subject matter. But if you're a Lovecraft fan and you're a Marvel fan, yeah, pick this graphic novel up. Thanos Imperative is awesome. You're gonna have to slog through an issue or two, the first couple of stories, whatever the first two issues were in the actual graphic novel.
People will be introduced, and if you don't know who they are, shrug your shoulders and go, fuck it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
keep
Just
going.
be like,
That one looks like
don't.
Horse Thor. Cool.
Yeah, I don't care. Well, I knew
Beta
who
Ray
Beta Ray
Bill.
Bill was, just because I'm a fan of Hulk and Thor and everything else, and have heard bits and pieces of storyline of that.
That was several levels of disappointing for me, because first I named him Horse Thor for like 2 pages before I learned he was Beta Ray Bill. And then I told that story to my husband, who immediately went, Thorse. I was like, fuck! Drop
Oh
that
my
ball
God. Why have
hard.
I-
Oh, I'm mad for
Thorse.
you too.
Yeah, I know, Thorse.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm going to go
Seriously,
drive my car.
From
off a
all
cliff.
of graphically novel to you three, fuck yourself.
Go fuck
No.
yourself.
just because it's going to trigger somebody, I think the word Thorse in quotes needs to go into the description of this episode.
Yes. Yes. Well, and I have to agree with you. I just think that
That's the Thorse. He's a coming.
I
Right?
think that-
Across the nation, the Colonel Medicine.
Oh.
He got the application that you just sent in. It needs evaluation. So let's engage begin.
card left.
He's Thorse. He's Thorse.
That's-
He's Thorse.
No,
What
that
kind
needs
of
to go in the
hammer is
episode.
that?
That needs to go in the episode so bad.
Fuck are you?
Who the fuck are
Fuck are
you?
you?
Bad Thorse.
Bad Thorse. Also, then he took off the helmet. I was like, oh, Brooklyn from Gargoyles. Check.
Also
There
true.
you go.
Yeah.
Nice. Great reference.
I'll just say that to any millennial.
Once they get
You
into
need to
the
watch
whole
more
bit.
Gargoyles.
Yeah, once they actually get into a lot of gargoyles, you're gonna.
Feel differently about John.
Anyways,
Yes.
you were about to say something, Jen.
Well, I also I don't know if it was intentional, but I think that I just got lumped in with millennials, which I'll fucking take.
It's
No,
like, you know,
I don't know if
I could be the grandparent of a millennial at this point.
I
it's
don't know
more
if
the
that
stage
counts.
your life you're living in. You know, and I just don't mean to
I don't
put
know
too
if
fine
that's
a point.
sad.
Is that worse?
Is
Did I
that
make
sad?
it worse? God
Is it
damn
sad?
it.
I don't
It
know.
might have made it worse. Like, three's technically
I don't
not a millennial
fucking care.
either.
Gen X for life.
Well, yeah.
Rock on.
Well, you are barely Gen X. Barely.
And it's like,
Hey.
you also have to take into account
Fair,
geography.
fair.
Because, like, three's almost more of a millennial than I am, even though he's 10 years older, because he grew up in rural Iowa. So,
True.
like, I was playing Oregon Trail at the same time it made it to him, you know?
Yes.
Like, it's just all the same fucking timeline.
That's true.
So,
That's true.
it
The
counts.
80s didn't
Still
show up in
counts.
Canada until the late 90s.
Yeah, it's like being behind the Iron Curtain. Like, it takes a while for shit to get to you.
Wow.
Well, see,
What?
Charles City, 45 miles from Cedar Rapids, but might as well be 45 light years.
Fucking years. Oh my god.
But I did it to myself because I graduated from high school and then for 10 years I didn't own a television.
Oh, yeah.
So
You're missing time.
You're
like an alien
She
abductee.
didn't watch Back to the Future until a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So, like, that's a cornerstone. Well, gotcha. Cornerstone of my marriage, because I just don't have a 2-hour attention span. So 3 makes a movie reference, and I go, "What?" And he goes, "Now we gotta watch whatever it is tonight." So, like, I just recently saw Dirty Dancing for the first time.
Wow.
Secret feminist romp about getting someone an abortion, and no one thought to mention that. Like,
Oh, I was
I
like,
thought it was about dancing. Like, the title's
I've seen.
I mean,
think
dancing
I've
was
seen
just-
the last like third of that movie.
okay.
Yeah,
Right.
And I
Oh,
have,
so
like,
the
I
point
haven't
from
seen
where he rips
anything
somebody's
that it
throat
was
out?
impactful. at
Right.
all.
Roadhouse.
Roadhouse. I've seen that.
Sarah, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
yeah,
It's been an
absolutely.
abundant pleasure.
Well, we'll make sure to get you the list for season 4 and see if we can get you back. Or even
We should do a couple. We should do the 3.
we
and
should
Sarah.
we should see if we can get you on the Transformers episode with 3.
Ah,
So he'll make you read Transformers comics.
he already makes me watch
Well, there you
Sorry.
go.
so much.
There you
Yeah,
go.
all right. It's an easy segue. I've got a shirt for that one too.
Dude,
Check.
Excellent.
Yeah, I've got such
Well, I would
good
imagine,
wardrobe
yeah,
for your
okay.
podcast. I'm in a ball gown right now, listeners at home.
That's
So
true.
I'm-
She is. She
I'm in
she
fucking
came
formal wear.
she came ready to be Thanos.
I got fancy gloves. They're attached to my coat with strings so I can't lose them. Except once Frederick stole one. That's not the same as losing something. Stealing is when someone takes something that belongs to you.
Oh man. Okay, so join us next time when we go over Blade. That's right. These motherfuckers are always trying to ice skate uphill. Till we see you, take it away, Vandello.
Come with me, I'll tell a story that you might have heard before. Graphically novel, but the same old trouble. Villains always knocking at the door. Pretty pictures on the page, but nothing ever stays the same. Do 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 do. Come at me, and I'll show you something you ain't never seen before. Right or wrong, or can't we all just get along? My mask different than yours. Pretty pictures on the screen, but nothing's ever as it seems.